Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Best Last Hope for Conversation. Best
or
Last
or
Hope.
or
Yeah,
less best hope,
yes.
whichever way you want to say it.
Yeah. I am Jesse Jackson. The lovely voice you just heard is Karen, and Lou is here as all. So the gang's all here, and we are ready to talk. I think an interesting episode. I won't say it's a great episode, but it's an interesting episode. The Illusion of Truth.
What can our
Uh,
gang name be, since we're a
uh,
gang?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to
We'll
think
have
on
to
that.
think of that.
Yeah. Let's start with you, Lou. Quick thoughts.
I think this episode title is probably one of the most aptly named ones of the series to date. From that perspective, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I saw the quote unquote twist coming a mile away. It was easy to predict that this guy wasn't what he seemed. But I think it was a pretty cool segue into their next, whatever they're going to be doing next. So this sets things up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I I was really angry with Sheraton as I watched this. Like, why were you so dumb? But then when I watched it the second time, they put a lantern on that, right? They share him. I'm pretty sure they're going to end up screwing us, but we are trying to control it and we'll do the best we can. And that's why I think at the end they look so he doesn't look he looks disgusted, but he also looks like this is what I expect, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I also think it was a mirror of the times in which the show was produced, where people still had more trust in media. We didn't have all the social media, which is really, I think, caused a lot of dissonance with people and their respect for institutions and that. I think there was a
Yep.
little bit in that too, but maybe
Yeah.
I'm just reading that
I
into it.
think there was less bias back then.
Yes.
We didn't have things like Fox News and all that.
And I always mention MSNBC because I
MSNBC the other
love
direction.
MSNBC because I we watch it and it is absolutely that
It,
it
it's
is biased a
100%
different way.
biased.
I I feel because I am biased that they try to not lie as much as perhaps
Faux
our
news.
friends at Fox. But yes, I do think that there is this, as you say, it's a different time.
Mm.
And this once again, I stand by, like all good TV shows, a lot of this feels very relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That you go, wow, this is really hits home.
What,
Yeah,
30 and a handful of years later? Yeah.
yeah. So
25. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so there really is not there is this is just one main storyline. We basically have ISN coming asking to do a documentary. They promise that they will try to be fair. And so I guess let's start, Karen, wherever you want to go. And Lou, don't wait for her to finish. We'll just do a
Jump in.
roundtable. You jump
Okay.
in because there's not really one storyline to visit. It's just my first thought is, why did Lanier even bring him to Down Below? That
Right.
just seems like a dumb thing to do.
A lot of weirdness
Yeah.
around all this. Yeah. Why would he bring him to Down Below?
And why would
Why
Sheridan
would,
choose him in the first place to do the
correct.
tour?
Right.
Like, why wouldn't he choose Susan or somebody? Like, that was kind of
Susan would
weird.
be able to control it a little better, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I think he wanted to show that they were welcoming of other races and
hmm
beings, but that's not really the best
So, uh,
explanation.
so let's think about it. Franklin would be too busy.
Yep.
He wouldn't have Delenn do it. Wouldn't do Veer
Hmm.
or Londo or Jakar, right? But it feels like there would be, I think Susan makes more sense. That
Yeah,
Susan would be,
a lot
or
more sense. Or
Zach,
Zach. Yeah,
or there Carwin, or
Or
someone
should
in the
like,
be,
command structure.
yeah, there's
right.
someone in the command structure that
So they
is,
could keep him out of places where he shouldn't be,
yeah,
like the cryo chambers. Why did they allow him that freedom to just go anywhere? Even even now in real life, we don't let people just go anywhere in any facility. There's places that shouldn't be visited by outside forces, and especially the media, especially even I'm finding it hard. I'm getting so angry about this. Why would they allow media that they know has been taken over by Clark's minions, even if the guy told him, we're going to try and get your story out there? Why would they let him just wander around with his cameras? To me, I would put Zach on him and say to Zach under the table, just keep an eye on him. Don't let him go anywhere where he shouldn't go. Or Susan, and she knows not to let him go, and she can assign someone. So to me, yes, I felt the same way you did, Jesse. I thought this is really dumb of Sheridan, but I can see where he would say, if this guy's really going to take a fair and balanced view, I hate to use that term, then maybe we'll let him on and we'll try to control the narrative. And then he just lets him wander off. Either way, it's dumb. Trust him or just let him wander around. So just dumb.
I'm sorry, Lou. I was hitting mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lou.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about Sheridan's quote, air quote, naivety than getting back to the title of the episode. What I found really interesting was we've lived with these characters, so we have this perspective of how things stand with Babylon 5. But for this news team to come in and film their documentary and then come back with a totally different interpretation of the situation is very fascinating and relevant, very relevant in today's times, whereas that we've talked about right-left media bias. And I found it fascinating how this interviewer was able to piece together this narrative that on the surface looks pretty compelling. If you're an outsider coming into this situation, his interpretation is there's that bias there, but it's understandable because whatever he's finding is supporting his construct for his story. And we see this every day on the news. If you see a certain story being reported and you watch it on a left bias media channel versus a right bias media channel, you get two totally different interpretations of the situation. And so this was the hook of this episode that I really found fascinating. And the other piece that I really liked was Garibaldi's scene, like that, where he tore Sheridan a good one. And that is that his true feelings or is that a result of his programming? So you're struggling with that to a certain degree because again, from a certain perspective, Sheridan basically has come back from Zahadum and resurrected, and he is projecting this godlike complex. And it's Garibaldi's read on that, which we're not sure if it's his true feelings or not. But again, from a certain perspective, you could understand why somebody would come up with those conclusions that he was telling the interviewer about.
Sure.
And
And
I'm really,
especially him because
Mhm.
Sheridan and all of them, they ignored him,
Yep,
left him out there by himself. They didn't bring him into the war. Yeah, he's got a beef.
yep. And
And
go ahead, Jesse.
yeah, and I was just going to say, obviously, from our perspective, we are supporting John and Delenn, and we're on their side. But there are other people. I think you could make a case that if you are like we have portrayed President Clark as a tyrant, we know he's tied to the shadows. We know all this things he's doing wrong. He probably takes money from foreign planets. He probably incites riots, but okay, I won't go there.
Gee, who are you
Yeah,
talking about there?
yeah, but I love how they've written this, and that's what people have hinted about, Lou, is Garibaldi is going to get some nice scenes, partly because of this, them not having him in there, right?
Right.
Because now then he is feeling this. I don't know how many watched Ted Lasso.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. If you and spoilers, guys, skip ahead if you haven't watched Ted Lasso. In the second season, they made a point of having Nate and Ted never have a scene alone. So that when Nate flips, it is because he has gotten used to the admiration and the one-on-one time of Ted, and now that it's gone away, he feels betrayed, right? Spoilers back.
Nate's the worst.
Yeah, I think Nate had a redemption, but that's a whole nother
Mm,
podcast we can have.
Yeah, I agree
Uh,
with you, Jesse. He did.
yeah, though I see your point, Karen,
Hmm.
and Linda agrees with you, by the way.
okay, good.
Yeah.
Tell her
Uh,
she's right.
but Garibaldi has this, I've been left out, no one else looked for me. We don't know how much of this is he already leaning that way, and is the mind control, whoever's doing that, pushing him a little
Just
bit
backing him
further?
up. Yeah.
Yeah, making it more things. I do think let's spend a few minutes.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
he's gonna be mad about Jakar too. If they had sent someone out to find Garibaldi, then Jakar wouldn't have been captured and his eye wouldn't have been cut
Yeah.
out. And
Yeah.
he's got that too.
And so let's spend a few minutes. I love Garibaldi. Ask me if I believe in God. And the guy's,
Mhm.
what? Ask me if I believe in God. And this whole, I love when our character shows that they're smart. And I love that Garibaldi was able to look, this is what happened. This is what happened. And the guy's, oh no. And then, okay, fine. What do you want? I
Yeah.
thought that was a lovely little scene. Lou, as our resident number one Garibaldi fan, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was hoping that he was gonna wear like a trench hat and a fedora or something
Right?
like
Yeah.
that. I was really wanting some sort of overt Sam Spade vibes there. But that was a good scene. I thought the character that was the customer, I thought he overplayed his role a little bit with the stereotype behavior and speech patterns. I didn't appreciate that as much, but Garibaldi was quite good in that scene. And obviously that statue, whatever's inside of it, is probably going to play a big part going forward in the series as well. So it'll be interesting to see what that is. The I'm just a little confused about how Garibaldi's going to pull off these things because he's helping people who have lost things during the Shadow War, but did they lose him on Babylon 5 or did they lose him on their home planets? Like, how is he going to operate? Does he get his own ship or is he just going to use contacts? I guess he has a lot of contacts as a former head of security. And I'd like to see where I guess that location they're using is his new office, but I would like to see him
It's
have a real office
yeah,
or
sure.
something.
I
And I'd
agree
like to see
too.
his new quarters. Exactly. So,
That's like the trade area because that's where all the telepaths go with clients too. We've seen that used in that
oh,
way as
I
well.
didn't remember
So
that, but that's a good point. Yeah.
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 So I think it's just like the meeting place for clients. I would love to see him have an office as well.
Yeah. With his name on a stained glass
Right? A
window.
little plaque
Yeah.
in
If you're
that
gonna
Star
go,
Trek font that they use.
yeah, if you're gonna go into it, what was that? Dixon Hill kind of thing
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
holodeck? Yeah.
The
So
holodeck.
if you're gonna go into that vibe, then why not embrace it? And
Right.
yeah,
That'd be awesome. I
yeah.
agree. I like that little scene with him and, as IMDb calls him, client.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that. I appreciate also that we've seen him bend the rules before, like when his mail came in and he found a way around getting it illegally. And he's doing that here, where he's okay, then I want a cut. That's part of his fee is he wants a cut of this probably illegally gained treasure. So right now I don't have the bars to stop me now. Now I can do whatever I want. I don't have any loyalty here on the station. And I do feel like that even that scene played into it where he just doesn't have any loyalty to his old job. None. Because he's doing something that technically Zach and them, they could be on the other side from him on this. And it plays into the whole illusion of truth, seeing things like you guys said, seeing things through different colored glasses. Um, I thought the offshoots of this bigger story, and like you said, it is one big story, but there are some little offshoots like Londo yelling at
Sheridan.
Sheridan And we get the scene in the sick bay, and some of that is an offshoot as well. So they're all part of the main story here. And I feel like all of that plays into that main story as well. We get the tie-in with the cryo chambers, the tie-in with him talking to Garibaldi, the tie-in with them showing Londo yelling at Sheridan out of context in the actual report.
Yeah.
I felt like this was a really cyclical episode. Everything came back at the end and tied in
One,
instead of it being offshoots to the next episode.
yeah, one of the things I loved, by the way, I don't necessarily know if what's being put in that Drazi god is necessarily ill-gotten gains or just they had to evacuate and there were when they were like going through customs were people going to try to grab things or something and so he was
Yeah.
hoping to hide that. I don't know, or it could
Oh,
be
he was a they
dealer
called him
betwickties. Yeah,
they
so
called
this
him what is he? Archaeologist.
yeah, so this could have been stuff that he should have given back right to the
Right.
actual
But he
place.
was smuggling it
Yeah,
to his home planet or wherever.
yeah.
Was
Um,
he a human? I don't know. Was
yeah,
he?
I think so.
Okay.
Anyway, it was I like that. I thought Londo was very funny. It's cold. I don't think you understand what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And
And we get Sheridan's comeback for him
yeah, well,
again.
trust me, if there were parts of you frozen, it would be those. I did like the sarcastic Susan. Did you threaten to throw him out the airlock?
Yeah, that was a great
Okay,
scene.
how many times have I told you we need the clothes?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
What she meant to say is stripped naked and thrown up.
yeah, and I also loved how they deliberately when I just knew that the interview with Delenn and John. By the way, my wife was watching part of this. I was finishing up the episode. We were going to watch something together. They sure are sitting close together. I'm like they're a couple. Oh, okay, that makes a little more sense. She's wow, they're really close. But I knew that wasn't going to end well. But I love the obvious way they cut to him in a different chair, a different background. So it was so obvious that he had inserted a different question than what he had really asked
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, like Lou said, they're going to see it from the
Yeah,
point of view of where they are.
yeah,
And apparently, a lot of people are snowed about this. And anyone who isn't is already going to be against it. It's not like they're going to change minds with this.
no, it it isn't. There
But
is,
they sure
yeah,
deepened the controversy with, especially with the inclusion of the cryo chambers.
Yep.
So
yes,
they're building up on the xenophobic aspects where they had that psychiatrist talking about
yeah,
Stockholm
Yep.
syndrome and all that stuff. Yeah, that guy his last name was Randall. I think he did a good piece.
A
Whether you
nice
yeah,
job.
like the
Yep.
result or not, but
yeah.
it was well put together.
I was very happy to see the actor playing the psychiatrist
Mm.
because one of the shows I loved as a kid was The High Chaparral. That was a Western drama, and he played one of the main kind of. His name was Henry Darrow, and he was one of the main supporting cast, and he's been in tons of stuff.
For one, he was in Voyager and The Next Generation,
Hmm.
a role that I'm guessing if you recognize him from anything, it would be Next Generation because he played something that looked like that on the show.
Yeah,
And the
he,
guy that played I'm sorry, the guy that
yeah,
played the reporter has been in a bunch of stuff too.
yeah.
Wow, he goes
He
way back.
also,
Eh? Holy shit.
and he
He was on
was,
Scarecrow,
yeah,
Yep.
Henry Darrow was the first
Hart,
Latino to
Benson. Wow.
play
Quincy,
a,
Incredible Hulk. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, way back.
BJ
he,
up there.
It's weird
yeah,
that we say that the Incredible
Bionic
Hulk was
Woman,
way back.
Wonder Woman.
yeah,
Oh, my
Wonder
16
yeah,
brother,
Woman.
man. Streets of San
yeah,
Francisco, Macmillan and Wife. Holy mackerel. Dick
Ooh.
Van
yeah,
Dyke Show. Oh my, Kojak.
hmm
Wow.
yeah,
Kung
yeah.
Fu.
And he played
Odd
Zorro's
Squad.
father in the 90 to 93 series.
Daniel Boone. My God, Bonanza.
Yeah, like I
Yep.
said, this
Mackerel.
guy is just
Oh,
someone, just you talk about a wonderful character actor. And I
Yeah,
thought played it really well. I thought,
agreed.
yeah, that this
yeah. I didn't like his hair, but I think they were going for an Albert Einstein vibe or
That was his
something.
yes.
hair.
Yeah,
He
but
had that same
it
hair
was
in
kind
other
of
stuff.
up at the front.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was almost like he wanted, or almost like a wannabe Centauri haircut,
Very good.
is what I thought. And I did love I really don't want to make a diagnosis, but yes, I'm going
Yeah,
to
But I
agree with
will.
exactly.
him, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I will
Right.
anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Um,
he says Helsinki syndrome, and it's actually Stockholm syndrome. But
yes.
I got the idea of what he was
Yeah.
Yeah.
saying.
And
I don't think it was used as much back then.
yeah. And that was, by the way, one of the nitpicks on Lurker's Guide is they
Mm,
said that could be interchanged. And they go, no, not really. That
no.
it's never called that. So let's talk a little bit more of the news broadcast. Um, they they're relaxing the curfew by a couple hours.
Means
They
their curfew is 7 p.m.
Yes, and it just seemed, and then oh my God, this is okay, forgive me, people. I know I'm gonna get butchered on this. The only thing that was missing is it should have been a sparkly, blonde-eyed, chirpy anchor.
Yes,
Though I really like the actress who's playing this anchor. She
She
came
has
across,
counterparts on Fox. There's that one.
that's true.
yeah, that's true.
One.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they named they the people who he named on the so very clearly manipulated confession.
Yeah.
They use names of actual people that were on the blacklist.
Yep.
Okay.
So I thought that was like Dalton Trumbo, Paul Jericho.
You're a Mostel.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
Parks, the person naming names, was also named as people who testified before the House Committee of Unaffairs, House Unaffair, uh, HUAC, and I'm trying to remember.
House Committee on Un-American Activities.
Right. Yes.
That.
Yeah, and I thought that was really also very poignant
Mhm.
because a time that was not something that we're very proud of. So yeah, I really love the on this day in history, some of it real, some of it not.
Mhm.
It's good to see that we have already started colonizing, what is it, Mars or the moon or
Yes, yes,
what was it?
absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm,
5, 6 years ago.
yeah. Yeah.
So
I really liked it would have been fun to see commercials, but I understand they've already done the Psycho commercial, so Psychcore commercial, Psycho commercial.
same thing.
But I thought it was nice that they actually the bulk of this was the actual episode that they showed on screen versus the guys watching it. That we
Right.
got it exactly how we would have seen it. And then at the end, with the quiet, all of it just, okay, that was a train wreck, and walking off, and then Sheridan slamming the remote.
Yeah.
Any thoughts
Yeah.
about the broadcast, Karen?
I liked how the commercials were really the commercials.
Yeah.
Like they would say, let's go to commercial. And I'm assuming that's where the commercial was when it was shown on TV.
Yes. If I remember correctly, yes, that was. Yeah.
I'm shutting up so Lou can talk
Yeah,
now.
Lou, thoughts?
I would. I was. Guess it's different propaganda, obviously, than what the hit piece is. That's the focus of the episode. So I assume that this is some extra propaganda that they're spreading. They say that 75% of Mars has been taken back. Is that an accurate figure? And
Probably not.
what about the dissidents that are still free on Mars? What's their position on how things are going? And this whole, it was a little bit on the nose with how obviously traumatized this writer, this Lee Parks was. And I don't know if this is an inside joke or something about a writer that was maybe on the show or some writer that was persecuted in real life. I don't know where they got the name from, or if he's just maybe a representation of persecution in general. But it really smacked of the McCarthy trials, era trials, and that. So I'm assuming that they're laying seeds here for a Mars storyline branch that will probably play out later in this season or maybe next season. I don't know, but it was an interesting departure, and is the obvious torment of this guy was, I think, done on purpose to show how ludicrous, perhaps, that this whole piece of propaganda was, and that people will buy anything if it fits into their preconceptions or
Narrative,
perceptions
yeah.
of the universe. And it probably shows the depth of the hatred between Earth and Mars at this particular juncture in time as well, that they're being so obvious in their propaganda. So that'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the future. And you mentioned that those three people that were named were on the blacklist. I was wondering why they specifically called them out. Is it just because they were on the blacklist, or are these characters going to
It,
have some sort of relevance going forward? I don't know.
no, this was just the actor who was doing the confession was named after a real person who named names on the committee, and the other people names were people that were based on Hollywood writers or creative people that were called communists that were on the blacklist that ended up losing their careers due
When you
to
say
this.
blacklist, are you talking about the McCarthy era blacklist?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so this was very much about that.
Okay.
And the idea that they're showing us that Earth is in a bad place is what I get from it. That there are, everyone is, instead of communism, it's alienism, that they're being manipulated by the people, by alien races. I do love how they keep John's a war hero, and so we've got to give him respect for that. But he's still a POS, and he's being manipulated by, and they make Delenn the villain. She is the motivation, and just really Marta Hari, is that the right reference? Maybe? Yeah,
It's not like they're accusing her of passing secrets. They are accusing her of being the prototype
yeah,
of that they're going to be doing experiments on
yeah.
fusing humans with aliens. And
Mhm.
Are they
so,
trying to call her Oko Ono? So
oh, oh no, maybe
yeah,
she's
it,
their analog, I guess,
yeah,
for
and it is sad that, and I think the common, you can't fight City Hall, you can't fight the press, right?
right.
That's, as they often talk about, when you're being interviewed, like man on the streets, whether it's Jay Leno or someone else, about can you name the vice president? And they can't, they're owning the editing. So even if you, like, if you're somebody who goes, oh, absolutely, it's Kamala Harris, and it was like, that's not funny.
You're not going to get on the air.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Um,
agree. And I think it's weird that they didn't show the scene with Zach in the report
yeah,
where Zach and all them. Although, was that broadcast live? He says he
I
was
don't know.
broadcasting, but anyway,
I did love Lanier being irritated by the camera.
yeah. Why was it banging into his head?
I don't know. They were just giving him a hard time, but I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, and he
Mhm. I
goes,
Yeah,
think they were trying to provoke a reaction, but
yeah, I
"Mm,
think so.
maybe
I think so. What else? Is there anything else we need to cover? As I said, I think it was an interesting episode, but I don't know if there was that much to discuss.
no, definitely a transitional episode.
Hmm.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the next scene between Sheridan and Garibaldi, though, especially after that
agreed.
hit piece. And again, like you've already touched upon it, Jesse, that Garibaldi's position is partly because nobody seemed to give a damn about him. And I'm really disappointed that they're not showing any scenes with like Susan, particularly because she had a good working relationship with Garibaldi and Sheridan to a lesser degree, but I think they respected each other. But there's no feeling out scenes between these three main characters, which I assume it's a deliberate creative choice by JMS to keep them separated. But it calls into that trope where of that TV trope where if these two characters just talk to each other, there wouldn't be a problem, right? But it's instead they don't talk to each other, and so then the problem festers and grows, which yeah, I'm ambivalent on that in this the context of this show for sure because it's such a tight quarter show. They can't avoid each other very often. But yeah, I'm not totally crazy about how the Garibaldi relationship between the principal act characters in the show has been handled this season for sure.
And I also I I did not like the fact, and I realize they're doing this for dramatic purposes, but the
Mhm.
awkwardness. Speak of the devil, and
Mm-hmm.
he's Michael, Captain. Like, why wouldn't he call him John since
Right.
he's no longer? And then what would be, I would have liked to see Sheridan go, "How are you, Michael? Are
Mhm.
you okay?
Yeah.
We miss you."
And what's
But
your beef?
yeah, or even just, and instead there's this almost stubborn, okay, you turned your back on me, so
Hmm.
I'm going to turn my back on you,
Exactly.
with no thought of maybe I did something that caused you to do this, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
think part of that is they're hammering home the fact that there's something going on with Garibaldi.
yes, absolutely. And he has that flash again, right? Yeah. So
And
You
you
will
start
hear
work
thinking,
only for
you
us.
hear
yeah,
Bester's voice.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So that's going
exactly.
to be that's yeah. All right.
It
And
kind
Any
of just in a off the wall observation. This reminded me of the MASH episode where they had the news reporter come in and do
mhm,
the documentary. And of course, that was a much more complimentary piece, but there was the same vibe a little bit in this episode
yeah.
with that. So
yeah.
just a random observation.
No, I think that's very true, and I I think this was done well. I know
Hmm.
that the MASH one is considered one of the best episodes of MASH, period. And I would make the argument one of the amazing episodes, period, of
Yeah,
TV.
especially Father
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mulcahy's scene when he's talking about
yeah,
the
Yeah. Oh,
doctors
yeah.
warming their hands over the open
yeah,
bodies
the
of the
body and
wounded.
how you
Yeah.
can see that, and the idea that the manipulation of the truth. And that's why I think, as you brought it up, Lou, the illusion of truth
Hmm.
is as a strong a title of where we're going as there is, right?
Yeah.
On this episode. So
Yeah.
good.
And I
Hmm.
really do the dynamic of not knowing Garibaldi's actions are whether they're how he really feels or if that's how the way he's been manipulated.
Yeah,
I would guess it's
Or
a
both.
combination of both. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But it's
yeah,
fascinating to watch him because now you've got the subtext going on. Every line he says now, you go, is that him keep speaking or is that his programming speaking?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Sorry, the cat's yelling.
No,
That's
I thought it
and
was a husband.
and and I'm being
Both.
text. So yes. All right. Any final thoughts before we give our ratings?
Mm-mm.
No,
Okay.
I think we've pretty well
Okay.
mapped it out.
All right. So Lou, let's start with you.
Huh. I'm going to give this a 7.75. What do you call it? Drones?
Okay.
Okay.
Even
Camera
though they probably
drones.
didn't call them
Camera
drones.
drones. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm calling
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
drones.
before drones.
Before
Yeah.
drones. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
look like Rumbas.
Yeah.
You
They
know, they
do.
yeah.
Before Roombas too.
Yeah. Or
Um,
what were the Farscape
oh,
drones?
AMDs, AM,
Yeah.
it was something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Right.
man, why do I not remember?
All right. And
Uh,
Karen?
yeah, I'm gonna give it 7.5. Only one handsome guy per episode. Because they mentioned Marcus, but he couldn't be on.
Yeah.
The reporter, that's their only,
Marcus
although
Marcus might have been an interesting to
guide.
guide too.
Hmm.
He's
You
very
know,
biased though.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm gonna go to I'm gonna go 7.5 naked airlocks as well. I think this was good, and I do think it I think it's setting the plate for that Earth is out there and they are taking Babylon 5 as a threat, and they are doing everything they can to get the
Public to agree.
people, yeah, to agree with them. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All
Yeah.
right. Good. We did get some email, didn't we,
He
Karen?
did. Okay, so the first one is from David. He says, I've always had a bit of a personal issue with this episode due to some bad encounters with the media about the time this came out. We see Sheridan and Ivanova discussing what's next after the Shadow War. Earth's embargo is really putting a cramp on things, but most keenly for Sheridan, who hasn't been able to get any information about his family for quite some time. Oh, I forgot about his dad. We should have
And
mentioned that.
no mention of his mom. And I know
Although,
his
has he
mom's
lost?
alive. I
Okay.
don't know. I mean, because he talked about your mother's out shopping or doing something when he talked
Right,
to,
right. Yeah, but they burned his
yeah,
house down, right?
yeah,
That
little
was
Richie,
mentioned in this one.
when they were talking to little Richie Cunningham's father,
Right.
uh, playing the great Rance Howard, playing his dad. Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, sorry. But most keenly for Sheridan, who hasn't been able to get any information about his family for some time. He mentioned he told his father some names. Was one of them Reverend William Dexter? Since Ivanova says that Zach is doing good so far as security chief, there have been no incidents. So sure enough, there is one. Zach and his security team confront a group who refuse to allow their baggage to be searched. Lo and behold, they are a reporter and his crew from ISN, and Zach just got his mug on candid camera. Side note, we often hear about Star Trek devices that predict the future. Here's a shout out to B5 and their drones. Yeah, quite a few things. And the swiping on the screen that was underneath the broadcaster. Swipe here for more information. That was before swiping. Okay, sorry. After a brief interlude where Sheridan and Franklin discuss the telepath popsicles, we see Sheridan meet with a reporter who claims he's there to at least try to get some of the truth about what's going on in B5 back to Earth. Sheridan reluctantly agrees, asking Lanier to be Randall's guide. Really, Sheridan? Since Clark's party line is how aliens are subverting Earth's interests, why not have an alien from the species we fought 12 to 15 years before, no less, represent B5? We see Sheridan and Delenn in a sit-down interview with Randall. Personally, I can't imagine Delenn going for this after the hatchet job the journalist did to her on Now for a Message. Let's be honest, how many times did you cringe when hearing their answers? Yep, I did. Concluding the first half of the episode, we see Randall chatting with Garibaldi. Ruh-roh, this isn't going to go well. We move on to the second half. Susan, John, Delenn gather in Sheridan's office to watch the newscast, and it's much worse than what they expected. But before they get the quote unquote news that Mars is 3/4 quote unquote recovered by Clark's forces and a blatantly coerced quote unquote confession, and he mentions about the McCarthy witch hunts. The piece on B5 is a classic hit piece showing everything out of context, half truths, creative editing, and quote unquote expert talking head, etc. Probably the most damning and infuriating was Garibaldi's interview. It lines up perfectly with Clark's propaganda. The piece ends with the conclusion that Sheridan is involved with a sinister alien plot to create hybrid humans to serve their alien masters. In closing, Randall mentions Sheridan's father's farm has been burnt and his family's whereabouts are unknown. Probably the only truth in the entire piece. The gang is stunned by what they've just seen and slowly leave the office, but not before Sheridan savagely hits the off button. What will the results be from this? How will Sheridan react? What is going on with Garibaldi to make him so anti-Sheridan? Tune in next week when we find out why revisiting the past is not always a good idea, or it's never a good idea to drink from a steaming cup.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, let me get the next one open. Usually I have these open, but Gmail is not really cooperating with me today. Okay, here's the one from Texas on the Shock. This episode could just as easily be called The Illusion of Control, since that's how they get Sheridan to agree to this. They paint a picture of either them putting together a news piece all on their own, or of at least trying to have some say in what they put out. Sheridan agrees so that he can have some kind of influence on the final outcome, but all he accomplished was getting himself on record, giving what appear to be seditious anti-Earth statements. The best thing he could have done was put them on the first shuttle back to Earth and been done with it. They would have still done the hatchet job, but without anything from Sheridan directly, they would have had to go on a second or third hand account. So there would always be some ambiguity. Beyond that, I think I said what my opinion is of news media on the last ISN-centric episode. I do have a couple of comments on the state of things. Another podcast I listened to shared a news clip covering an airliner door that someone had opened in midair. It's not really that important a story, but it was a showcase of everything that bugs me about current news reporting. They kept going on in this breathless tone. How could this have happened? How did the pilots keep from crashing? It really wasn't that big of an issue, but they made it sound like this big emergency. And then they ended with the line, talk about scary. The incident was overblown. The delivery was over the top, and the whole thing was just irritating. It's not news, it's performance. The other thing is our discourse, particularly online. Recently, I made a comment on a video about a particular game mechanic of Mass Effect 3. Shortly after, someone replied to inform me that I was incorrect, except it was more like, nuh-uh, it's actually this way. You're stupid, lol. I should know. I just played it, so ha. They went on for several posts by which this had become an exchange I had no desire to continue. They may have been right, but they completely destroyed any interest I had just by being so obnoxious and condescending. And this is just about something as trivial as a video game. I hope that wasn't me. I didn't do anything like that, I don't think. But this is how so many exchanges online seem to go. People just charge in with this I'm right and you're an idiot attitude, which immediately raises the hackles of whoever they're addressing and pretty much destroys any chance of actual conversation right off the bat. Even if the other person is right, you wind up not wanting to admit it because they'll become even more insufferable. And if they're wrong, you don't want to bring it up because they probably won't believe you anyway. And it would just prolong a pointless argument. Or as I like to call it, this is Karen, as I like to call it, talking into the wind. There's a few things to consider for the future, the mention of Sheridan's father, the interview with Garibaldi, and the strategy Clark's propaganda seems to have settled on. But we'll get there. Hoping your next discussion isn't the kind that can only end in a gunshot. Oh, and be sure to watch all the way through the end credits on this one. This is Texas Anloshock signing off until Zaveni. So thank you, Texas. That was very good.
Absolutely. Thank you, Texas.
And we have one more from Nate. Hey guys, this is a frustrating episode for me because it's an idiot ball. Hello, TV tropes. That's a joke. Sorry for the poor translation. A guy comes into a bordello, goes into a room with a girl, and she runs out a minute later in tears, yelling, horror, horror, and refusing to go back. Madame chooses another one, sends her in. She runs out a minute later in tears, yelling, horror, horror. Then a third girl is sent in, but she, a minute later in tears, comes out a minute later in tears, yelling, horror, horror. So Madame decides to go herself, spends an hour there, comes out and says, well, yeah, it was a horror, but not horror. Okay, that's cool. If the episode was an inverse of this joke, I would have liked it much more because the crew were complete naive fools who were 15 years old. I would have preferred a strong paranoia and being horrified by not just the tone or editing of the stuff they were prepared for, but what ISN did by making a complete fiction. As it was, what they were expecting was completely strange, especially coming from JMS, who worked as a journalist and created quite a bleak picture of Earth's society and government. With regards, Nathan.
So one, I didn't get the joke, Nathan. So if you want to email me and explain the punchline, I would appreciate it. I'm going to admit I don't get it. Unless it's like the joke of the food is horrible here, and the other lady says yes in such small portions.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what it
Yeah,
is.
I get your feelings, and we talk about it too. I guess that I don't think they were naive. I just think they were hoping for the best. Though it absolutely, we shared your thoughts on they shouldn't be surprised about the hatchet job. But yeah. Any other thoughts about those? And Lou, did we get anything from YouTube?
Yes, we did for the previous episode, Epiphanies, CPM. Please, next time you comment, ask if that's, let me know if that's a Rush reference or not. I am
Yes.
going to start calling Denis Villeneuve's movie Zahadum. I was calling it Dunas because it has too much made up stuff not from the book. But after hearing Jesse say Zahadum too many times, it is stuck in my head. So there you go, Jesse. You've brainwashed the poor
I've
lad.
won it. I've won.
Diana Oder 1285. I think, and then I think she's a new commenter. And
I
welcome
don't
to the
remember.
show,
Yep.
Diana. I think in this case, Sheridan is right when he reprimands Lyra. He was the captain of the ship at that point. So when she was under his command, also she did what she could have, what she did potentially could have endangered everyone on the ship. If Sharon had figured out the situation as quickly as he did, the ship could have been caught up in the planetary explosion. By doing what she did, however justified, she endangered everyone, and he was right to be mad. And yeah, totally agree with you on that.
Yeah,
Thanks for the
good
comment.
point.
Yeah. FMS Dog says, after the next episode, you won't watch cable news the same way ever again. I think we've already reached that point far
Yeah.
before we've seen this episode. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it is quite educational to watch the channel that you normally watch and then go watch one of the other opposing viewpoint channels, and it really is like two different realities, and it's you. That's when I want to punch the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Finally, if he says Sheridan died, he has 20 years left at best, so he has no time for BS. The end. Very good.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you,
Good.
everyone.
All right. By the way, I forgot to share the Lurker's Guide was a 7.56. So we're
Mm.
right where that was right where we are.
Yep.
Next week, we are taking a break from the episodes and watching Third Space. It is a made for TV movie, originally shown on TNT, based on feedback from our listeners and from Lurker's Guide. They suggest that this episode, the movie, should be watched before we go to the next episode. So that's what we're going to do.
Third Space.
Yes. If someone wants to reach you, Lou, how can they?
You can find me on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where you'll find this podcast along with our JKL Media podcasts. And I think we're slated to do the Watchmen miniseries that was recently on
Yes.
HBO
Soon.
next.
Yep.
So keep an eye out for
Yep.
that. I also have my writers interview podcast that I do, as well as the Stephen King podcast. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitma.
Okay. Good. Karen?
I am at Eleveria, most of the social media platforms. I've decided I'm going to start putting my cat on TikTok, so we'll see where that goes.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's an idiot. But I'm sorry. Yeah, so at Alveria, and then I have a blog, which is aliesstuff.com. And the landing page has a bunch of links that you might find interesting.
And I am at Jesse Jackson VFW on X, aka formerly known as Twitter.
No, always known as Twitter.
Yes.
Sorry.
And we would love to hear your feedback. Go to iTunes, rate and review the podcast. For those of you listening on Good Pods, thank you. We were ranked in the top 20 on Good Pods for television commentary. So that is very lovely. In fact, we were 16 in the top 100 indie TV reviews.
Awesome.
So thank you for that, for listening on Good Pods. We appreciate it. I think that's it. We will be back next week with more Babylon 5 talk. For now, Karen, Lou, thank you both. Listeners, thank you. Be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
I waved, but I'll say it. Bye.
Yay, bye.
And see.